There's not a single one-pager in the history of sales enablement that has closed the deal. But
What closes deals?
does your sales team understand the product really well? Do they understand the user really well? How you get to that is, I don't care how you do it. If it's by showing them demos, if it's by getting them to play with the product, if it's getting them to become subject matter expertise, that should be your sales enablement strategy.
Welcome to Frank Growth. I'm Jason Shafton. I run the growth consulting firm Winston Francois. Around here, we tell the truth about growing, the good, the bad, and the you can't say it out loud ugly. Every episode, we get tactical with operators, investors, and builders about what works, what breaks, and what to do next. No fluff, no vanity metrics, and no hustle theater. Just signal. This is Frank Growth. Let's get into it. Today, we're talking to Seif Salama, and this is the art and science of product marketing. Before we bring in Seif, a quick riff on today's topic. Product marketing is probably one of the most misunderstood functions in all of tech. When it's missing, you see the symptoms everywhere. Sales can't explain the product, launches flop, positioning drifts, and growth stalls even when the product's good. When it's working, you barely notice because everything just fits. 3 questions separate great product marketing from slide factories. Does positioning show up in the sales conversation, not the deck, the actual room? Does the launch process create momentum or just announcements? And can you measure impact even when attribution is messy? 3 traps I see all the time: confusing activity with influence, positioning by committee until it means nothing, and building for product and marketing, but forgetting sales entirely. That's the frame we'll use with Seif. Let's get tactical. Seif, welcome to Frank Growth.
Hello. Hi.
Good to have you here.
Love being here.
Before we get into the frameworks and how it all works, I want to start with the foundation. When you hear product marketing, most people picture launch decks and messaging docs. What does it actually mean, and what does it do when it's working?
Ooh, we're going to nerd out product marketing stuff.
Yes.
I think it's like translating product truth to market truth is like the simple one-line fancy thing you put on a slide. But I really think most people focus a lot on telling people what the thing is versus helping people learn and decide. I think that's the biggest difference between people get it right or wrong. Most companies get it wrong because they treat it like we need to tell customers what the thing is versus let's teach them and help them make the decision and let your product win out.
You're describing what I've heard referred to as like product education, helping surface the magic to the customer, which I like. I like that a lot. More of a show than a tell. In one sentence, what separates product marketing that drives revenue from product marketing that's just pretty slides?
If it doesn't, B2B and B2C will always have a little bit of a difference there. But for me, if it doesn't change your pipeline or like how your funnel looks and your adoption and retention, like it's not working, it's not product marketing. I think we get lost in, is it the right messaging? But what is right messaging? It's like, are you moving the thing that the number you're supposed to move? If you're not, it's not work.
Yep. You've operated at Google scale, now Fanatics, and also Startup Speed, Carta, AngelList. What translates when you shift contexts and what breaks completely?
The fundamentals never change. Customer empathy, positioning, like clear operating rhythms, briefs, like that will never break. What kind of gets different is like prioritization. Because when you're at a startup, you don't have the Google money to go and do a bunch of different things and see what sticks. You kind of have to be very ruthless on what you can do. So I will say like keep rigor and compress the cycle time. You don't have the luxury of time in startups, but you have the luxury of maintaining the rigor of your craft. So stick to the rigor of what makes good messaging and what makes good positioning. Don't let go of that. It won't be as perfect because you don't have the time, and that's okay.
Let's talk positioning. How do you build positioning that sales can actually use in the room in the B2B context, or users, customers actually remember afterwards, B2B or B2C?
I think positioning sticks when it's a clear choice. There's a customer language to it. It's very easy to look at positioning and say like, oh, this is someone who wrote the framework. They like got the thing that they saw online and they filled it. And they're like, I got my positioning. And that like gives me allergies. I have allergies against that because like it's not rooted in any real customer insight or customer language. And you're like, oh, this is so generic. Like I can take this and put it anywhere.
Is that like AI generated positioning?
I actually think AI can help you do very great positioning in terms of getting you inputs. People rail a lot about like AI slop, AI slop. I was like, slop existed before AI. It's just like slop does it. It's just now AI makes it sloppier. But I think like PMMs now, I'm a PMM of one person currently, and I use a lot of AI stuff to like look at competitors, think about messaging. Like it's a thought partner as opposed to an output spitter for me, because that's what I mean by like, then you get to compress the cycle, but I'm keeping the fundamentals of like, okay, how can I use it for data extraction and analyzing things and looking at calls and doing all these things that I would have had to do it manually. Now I have to all these ways that I can go and look at. But generally for your positioning to work, I used to work with a guy who had a very simple framework. It was like, if I take your positioning and put it on the other competitor's website and it works, then it's not. It's very simple. It's like, can I take what you put on your website and put it on your competitors and it works? Yes, then you're not well positioned to win this messaging.
You're not different and special. Positioning also isn't
No one
permanent,
is.
right? What are the signals that tell you it's time to evolve the positioning? And how do you pressure test whether a change is necessary or just a shiny object?
I think there's like a few signals, the why people buy. So like you'll have your sales signals like, okay, when does your win rate start dropping? Are people like getting confused in longer sales cycles? Like objections are starting to repeat. You start seeing a lot of that. Your customers will start use you for a different use case than you were built for. So you start seeing like a different dominant case for your tool or your service or whatever it is. And then generally sometimes like the market will shift, right? The category, something new comes into market, the category starts shifting, and you're like, whoa, what do we do now? We are not the leaders in that space we were in.
Launches are where product marketing lives or dies. Walk us through what a great launch process looks like. Timeline, ownership, cross-functional handoffs. Give us the deets.
Again, it's the same rigor. Like I think the timeline changes based on where you work. Like at Google, you have a much longer product life cycle. When I was at like AngelList or Carta, like your product life cycle looks significantly different. What really doesn't change is like you should have a shared plan, clear ownership, clear handoffs. If a launch feels chaotic, then I would say that's not the best launch possible. Like it's very obvious what's going on. And I think the difference between good and great PMMs is like good PMMs know how to run the process and great PMMs know how to create the process for the environment that they're in to make themselves successful. And I think that's a very different, really think the biggest difference between someone running a great launch process and a good one.
Not everything deserves a big launch, though, right? How do you decide what gets the full campaign versus a softer, quieter, smaller launch?
I think generally there's like a rubric that you build. So in most places that I have been, we had a tiering system, 1 through 3. You don't need to overcomplicate it. And like you kind of sit with your PMs, you drive alignment on like, okay, these are our tier 1 product launches, these are tier 2. You kind of have that debate early. And I always think of big launches are like step changes in value or like strategy. These are like big things. And then like incremental improvements, everything like kind of quietly ships with more like targeted messaging. If you need to drive something like user adoption or behavior, then I would go do that. Drive that early. And then from there, you should be okay.
I like it. Let's talk competitive intelligence. Some teams are obsessive about what competitors are doing, others ignore them, blinders on. Where does it actually matter and where do teams over index?
I am team, it doesn't matter at all. I am team, if you have a good story to tell and you're differentiated enough and like well positioned, then like who cares? And you have a product that like drives value to the customer, like, who cares? If you have yeah, I'm team who cares? Do your thing.
Okay, messaging has to travel across website, sales decks, ads, customer success. How do you build messaging architecture that holds up across channels and personas?
You got to have one promise. Your product has to do one thing. And then that thing has a few pillars and a consistent proof. So for me, it's always like, why buy in plain language? Most briefs are, oh, people buy because blah, blah. I was like, just in very plain English. Why are people buying this thing? Tell me in like very simple, people are buying this thing because they have this problem that we are solving by doing this. Usually once you get that, it becomes much easier to build out like, what are top customer jobs? How do you build out like the benefits? And then you start thinking about your proof points. From there, it becomes much easier to take it to different personas because then you're solving one consistent problem across different personas.
Product marketing and product management, there's always a bit of tension. What is the right relationship and who owns what? And so how do you handle the jump ball? Who does what and what's the right kind of balance and relationship between those two functions?
I think earlier when we talked about like product marketing, I said like it's transitioning product truth into market truth. The PM owns the product truth, like what the product does and how it does it and how it fixes the user's problem. That is solely owned by the PM. And I know PMMs, we get like a little touchy because like we have a customer insight and it needs to go on the roadmap because like I saw it in my feedback cycle. We've all been there. And I think people always get lost in, but I have the customer insight versus driving to the same outcomes and driving the story of like, here's how this serves our customer. So if you really think about the PM for me, the PM owns the product truth, PMM owns the market truth. The magic is in the overlap. If you butt heads, you're kind of like, it can't work for your user or your customer. Because at the end of the day, you both want to do the same thing. The PM wants to build a product that people use, and the PMM wants to launch a product to get people to use. So the magic is in the overlap. Don't fight over this. This is just build for the customer. Everybody focus on the customer. I don't care if they get along, actually. Just focus on like driving value to the customer.
I like product truth and market truth. I think that's very clean. Another topic, sales enablement, is supposedly the job of product marketing in B2B, but oftentimes you have sales reps, BDRs, SDRs, AEs that ignore kind of a lot of the marketing material that makes its way to them. How do you enable sales without drowning them in content that they'll never use?
There is not a single one pager in the history of sales enablement that has closed the deal.
What closes deals?
Does your sales team understand the product really well? Do they understand the user really well? How you get to that is, I don't care how you do it. If it's by showing them demos, if it's by getting them to play with the product, if it's getting them to become subject matter expertise, that should be your sales enablement strategy. Your sales enablement strategy is to make sure that people understand the product really well. Let them describe it how they want to describe. Don't teach salespeople how to sell stuff. They know how to sell stuff. They're in sales. Teach them what they're selling. I think there's sales enablement, yes, teaching salespeople how to sell or like different sales pitches or tactics or whatever. But when it comes to product marketing and like launches or teaching people how their product works, teach them who their customer is really well. Know your customers, like what is their pain point? What are they trying to solve? What is like the aha moment of your product? And like go solve that pain, teach them about that pain and how they solve it. That's the best sales enablement in the world. The one pager never closed the deal.
I like that, and I agree. So, what is it that product marketing provides sales then? What are the things that they create? Is it to your point? You're saying teaching. So, are they training them? Are they teaching them about the customer? Are they giving them talking points? Are they giving them product truths to communicate that translate to the market truth? How do you see that process working well?
I'd be lying if I said I've ever seen it like work incredibly well. What I have always seen though is the really, really good salespeople just want to know about the product in clean language. Like they just tell me like, what does the thing do? I will now go sell it. So I think the role of PMM is to know how to speak the sales and their customer language to be able to have a good relationship with their account managers and like their sales leaders. And that way, when they're teaching them about the product, it's not like in this weird realm that comes down in this one sheet that this is how you talk about it. Like build shared common languages with your partners, because if they're not bought in and if they feel like you're talking a different language than them, they will not adopt it. So you can build all the pretty slides you want on the pretty one pages you want. They won't use them.
All right, let's talk pricing and packaging. Product, finance, product marketing, everybody has a point of view here. When is it driven by product marketing? How do you approach it? What is your perspective on pricing and packaging?
Product marketing's job is to be an input into pricing and packaging and not a driver of pricing and packaging. I think the biggest mistake I have made is because like product marketing is this elusive thing that's like, what is it? Is it like launches? Is it pricing and packaging? Is it positioning? Is it user acquisition? Is it, and because the skill set can be very wide, you can find yourself thinking you're like the driver in many places, where really product marketing is like a broad influence, limited ownership job. You don't own the roadmap. You don't own the pricing strategy, really. You really own the messaging and positioning at best. But you need to influence the roadmap, and you need to influence the sales team, and you need to think about like, how do we think about the product strategy in the long run? So that's why it's less about like the, oh, this is not my thing. It's more of a, where can you provide the highest level of value? And in a pricing and packaging conversation, I believe product marketing's best place is to say, here's who our customer is. Here's what they value the most about the service that they get from us. And here is where we really can see a clear differentiation and segmentation of, when the customer hits this milestone in their journey, they see this type of value in our product. That is an input metric out of so many other input metrics from other teams to help drive that decision. I don't think product marketers are necessarily the best people to solve for that as much as have input.
Got it. Let's talk about attribution. I think it's interesting because we talk about product marketing as this very critical piece in the machine. I think there's a similar to product management, there's an inclination to go to product marketing and ask for input on lots and lots of things, and to want product marketing to bless things before they happen.
The biggest distinction, it's always important. People say like, oh, know your customer. And I'm also like, know your product. The amount of product marketers who don't know their product is alarming to me. Because I'll interview people and we'll have conversation, be like, oh, walk me through a launch. And they'll walk me through a launch. Be like, okay, how did the product like explain to me now? How does it work? And people start faltering, versus there are other people who know their product really, really well. So know your customer really well, know your product really well. Please.
Excellent. Let's talk about attribution, which is already kind of messy in marketing. For product marketing, I think it gets trickier. How do you measure product marketing impact when it's probably a few steps removed from the actual conversion event?
Measuring PMM, everyone's favorite subject. I think attribution is always messy, and PMM is, again, broad influence, limited ownership. So I always think about measuring it like a system, leading indicators. So are we providing enough input? Are we talking to enough customers? So like research shift or messaging adoption. Are we driving the right outcomes in certain cases? Like, is our sales cycle getting shorter? Do we have like the right activation, adoption, retention numbers? Usually what I try to do is pick like a primary KPI for each initiative you take on, with some level of supporting signals. There's never going to be a one-to-one measurement. You and I have worked on projects where we get the questions like, how do I measure my PMM team? Like, what's the metric? What's the one magical metric? And I'm like, there isn't one, because you have 4 PMMs across different parts of the product life cycle. You have some 0 to 1 products. You have like 1 to 10 products. The measurement for the PMM shifts significantly. When I was at Carta, when we think about like 0 to 1 products, you are thinking about sales win rates, because you have nothing. There's nothing to adopt if people don't buy it. And then over time, it becomes like, okay, people bought it. How do we retain them? Like the PMM's KPI changed. So like, I think there isn't like this magical number that people should measure. I always think of it as like, the PMM goal is a shared metric with the PM goal. What is the PM measured on? The PMM should be measured on that as well.
All right. What's the one thing most PMMs underinvest in that compounds over time?
Build a great understanding of your customer and distribute it internally. I think I am so bad at this. I would learn all these things about like users from talking to them, or like being on research calls or listening to sales calls. And I would just like keep it, and then I would build things off of it. And people would be like, no, but what is it? But like when people start believing that how much you consume about like the user and how much insight you have, and going back and forth with people, you will build trust with these feedback loops, whether it was sales or CS or like whatever it is. And that compounds very, very quickly. Because the more you know about your customer, you'll find yourself in conversations in the weeds that builds trust with the rest of the organization much faster, which then answers the eternal question of, how does PMM build trust in an organization, and how do you make them believe in the function? So there's a lot of people who know a lot of things. You can't build trust if you don't know what you're doing.
You can't build trust if you don't know what you're doing. If you were hired by a growth stage startup tomorrow to build the product marketing function from scratch, what would your first 90 days look like?
Like any other PMM 90 days should look like. Diagnose, just like sit there, talk to customers, listen to sales interviews, talk to see what's going on, absorb as much information as possible and understand who your ICPs are, just start building a map of, okay, this is who we are, this is what we do, and we do it for these people as you consume information. Like just put thoughts on paper. And then the next 30, decide what you want to do. Think about how you want to position your messaging, launch tiers. Okay, now we've got that set up. Then you start scaling, right? Build your metrics, think about your end-to-end product loop. How do you want to drive feedback cycles? But I think just everything starts with understanding the business that you're in and the customer that you're serving. And then you start working. But if you don't understand what you're doing and who you're doing it for, it doesn't matter what.
I like it. All right. Lightning round. You ready?
Sure.
One framework that you use all the time.
The 4 C's for positioning.
What are the 4 C's?
Customers, culture, company, and competitors.
One underrated skill for product marketers.
Writing.
One lesson you learned the hard way about this craft.
In B2B, if your sales team doesn't adopt it, it doesn't exist.
Perfect. Seif, this was very sharp, very usable, and exactly why I'm doing this. So where can people find you online? Where can they connect with you and learn more about all of this wisdom that you have?
Me on LinkedIn. There's not
He's
a lot
on
of
LinkedIn.
Seif Salamas. It's very easy to find me. Yeah, we'll chat. Why not?
Awesome. Thanks for coming on, Seif. We appreciate it. That was Seif Salama and a clear look at what product marketing actually does when it's working. Here are 3 of my favorite takeaways from today's conversation. First, product truth is the responsibility of the product manager, and market truth is the responsibility of the product marketer. Bring those 2 together and you can have magic. You can deliver on what your product is to your customer with the right message at the right time, wherever they are in their journey. Understanding your customer is paramount, and that's the job of great product marketing. Second, no deal was ever closed with a one-pager. All of the most beautiful sales enablement materials in the world will not help you close deals if your sales team does not know what the insights are about your customer or your user. And so ultimately, the job of product marketing is not to churn out decks and one-pagers. It's to teach the sales team about the things they need to know to let them do what they're already good at, selling. And finally, if your competitor can use your positioning, then it isn't good positioning. Your positioning should be unique, differentiated, and special to you. That's what makes it yours. If your tagline and positioning can be slapped on your competitor's product, their website, then you need to do more work on improving your positioning. All right, one action you can do this week in less than 10 minutes, pull up your current positioning doc. Now ask one sales rep or team member, what do you actually say in the first 5 minutes of a call? If there's a gap between the doc and your positioning and that conversation, that's your next project. That's Frank Growth. If this gave you something you can use this week, follow the show and share it with an operator who needs it. I'm Jason Shafton from Winston Francois. We help tech companies build sustainable, repeatable growth with a proven operating system. Show notes and takeaways are in the description. Be frank and keep growing.